The Board of Zoning Adjustments is now here. It's 1 minute before the hour. Since all of us are here, we will call the roll and call the meeting to order. Okay, I'll speak up. I said the entire board is now here. It is now 4 o'clock. We will call the meeting to order and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Mr. Barfield?
Here.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Blenheim?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah.
Mr. Walter?
Here.
Ms. Upshaw?
Okay, the next item of business is approval of minutes. You have those, were sent to you. If there are no corrections or additions, the chair will entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion in a second. Who did all the second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes of the previous meeting of March 4th have been approved. We will now go to the hearing of applicants. The first applicant is Mr. Joe Young, Eufaula Eagles Nest, request for special exception, section 5.223, uses permitted on appeal to allow recreational meeting facility for the Scouts of America on property located at the southwest intersection of Lake Drive and Lakeside Drive. It is zoned R1. Mr. Young, will you stand and explain to the board your request?
What we propose to do is build a 40 by 60 metal building, like American Buildings builds, and the facility will be used for a meeting place for the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, whoever needs to use the facility. And we think this would be a very good use for the property, since it's right across from Lakeside School, and they have a Cub pack over there at Lakeside. It's also conveniently located to the middle school and the high school, where a lot of the Scouts now teams go. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I have a set of plans if anybody would like to see that. Answer any questions anybody might have about the project.
How do you propose to handle the probable parking that's going to be needed to go associated with that?
Well, the situation that we deal with is normally parents will bring their kids and drop them off and then come back and pick them up after the meeting is over. If we have a meeting of some kind, which we have parents and all, we've got an acre of land, and I'm sure we can park whatever people we have on that acre of land with no problem. If we have a problem, we've got the Lakeside School right across the street, and I'm sure they would have no problem if we were to need additional parking over there.
Are you expecting to possibly rent this for other operations to use the building?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. I just noticed this is a location of the building. Is that correct?
That is an outline of the parcel.
Oh, that's the outline of the parcel,
Correct.
which actually takes in a parcel that's number 2 that's on Lakeside Drive.
Yes,
Okay.
they recently went before the
Okay.
planning commission. to
Okay,
get that
and
approved.
you got that approved. Okay, so that is the parcel that you have.
Yeah, so
laid out.
there were 2 lots, I think, that was part of an existing platted subdivision that was in a low area and a low drainage, which never could be built on anyway. So we just tried to square that up and make it, you know, work out.
And so this area to the west and to the south is actually open area. It's an open field right now.
Yeah, so.
Right now. Mhm.
Yes, sir.
And then Lakeside School's across.
Where the boat
Okay.
used to be.
All right. That's the only thing I question right there. And I'm assuming that this, you say, is a low area, so that's not usable, except for
No.
boys having a good time in it, right? Okay. I bet they could. All right. Any other questions, Mr. Young?
I have none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask this,
Application is
is
made.
there going to be signage?
Ma'am?
What kind of signage is going to be?
There's already a sign on it. You haven't seen it? Gosh, I thought we had a good sign.
I did not see the sign, but, you know.
Next time you go down Lake Drive, get in front of Lakeside Kindergarten, look right over on your
okay.
immediate right, and you'll see Eufaula Eagles Nest.
Do you propose that to be your permanent sign, or is that just a sign?
I'm not sure at this time, once we get everything in the building up and whatever, then we may improve on it or whatever, and at that time, we'll do whatever.
Would the-
jumping the
Currently, the
next-
sign there is more of an identification sign.
Okay,
What's-
I was thinking of a building sign or, you know,
This is
on the
not a commercial
building.
building, this is just it's like a school or a church or whatever, it's a nonprofit organization.
Right, I understand that. Just wanted to make sure that any signs conformed with the ordinance.
Oh, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request or against it? You may speak now. You'll identify yourself. All right. All questions have been answered by the board. I will also look at the staff review. This site is a vacant wooded parcel. It's now set up as a 1.145 acre parcel, 2,400 square foot metal building. Section 8.512 of the zoning ordinance allows the Board of Zoning Adjustments to hear special exceptions. You must find that the request shall not be contrary to public interest, will ensure that the spirit of the zoning ordinance shall be observed, et cetera, et cetera. As I look down through here, the staff concludes that the establishment of a recreational building is consistent with the zoning ordinance and recommends approval under the following conditions. The special exception is limited to the operation of a recreational meeting space with accessory storage for the scout activities. Submittal of a building permit and site plan showing access and parking prior to placement and occupying of the structure. Any additional conditions imposed by the board as stated in section 8.512. Okay? It stated that there'll be between 20 and 30 people, mostly children, that will be dropped off and then picked up as Mr. Young has stated. If you have no questions or need amplification, the chair will entertain a motion concerning this request.
I make a motion that we accept or approve this application with the stipulations as recommended by the staff. I see no reason for any additional stipulations by the board at this time.
Okay, there's a motion and a second by Mr. Walton. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Blunhine?
Yes.
Brother Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
Mr. Barfield?
Yes. Mr. Young, your request has been approved. However, there is 15 days that anyone in this vicinity can appeal to circuit court. However, you are free at your own discretion to proceed with your plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
And thank you for your work. Thank you for the work with the scouts. All right. Our next request is an applicant by Abe Pinage. Did I get that right? Abe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought I was. All right, request for special exception, section 5.2233. Uses permitted on appeal to allow a handyman business at a as a home occupation on property located at 340 Cherry Street.
It's
It is
not just
all-
a handyman business, there's also a lawn care service. I'm gonna park lawnmowers and put construction equipment in a shed in my backyard.
Okay, it will be in, since you made that statement, your shed is big enough to contain all of this that you're going.
18 by 24, and the lawnmowers I'm gonna put in a lean-to that has lattice around it because I need ventilation so they don't blow up because they have gas in them.
Okay. Okay, so okay, I can understand that completely. All right. And if I were living next door, I would appreciate you doing it very much. Okay, anything else that you would like to explain to the board?
You know, so I'm not gonna be doing business out of there. I just wanna park my stuff in there at night and be left alone. I tried to have a shop downtown and it gets broken into almost every week. And there's all kinds of stuff. When you put a shop downtown, you got to put in a bathroom, need all kinds of codes and whatnot. And I just want something simple where I can keep my stuff secured so that my workers can continue to have a job.
Okay, there will be no one coming to your, for services, so there will be no additional traffic.
Unless they come to my house to cut my grass, but they're already cutting the grass in that house anyway, so I don't think it'll be additional.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. So you'll be taking your equipment to other people's areas and lawns and whatever, okay?
Yes, sir.
So, and you'll only be using the house basically for a.
I'm gonna live in the house.
You living in, okay,
That way I'll be there and I'll know if somebody breaks in.
all right. Y'all have any questions of Mr. Tynage?
I do not.
It is a typical request for home occupation, as I see it.
My concern about how much of gas you're gonna have stored there.
How much gas?
Yeah, gas gonna be there.
Well, one of the
Glass.
mowers has 2 5-gallon tanks and the other one has 1 5-gallon tank. And then I keep 2 5-gallon tanks, one of mixed and one of regular gas to go in the smaller engines. So that would be 25 gallons of gas. That's less than a car.
It's in the lawnmower, not in can.
No, there'll be 10 gallons in a can, 15 gallons in a lawnmower.
If it's full.
If it's full, which most of the time at the end of the day when I put it up, it's not. That's less than a truck or a
So you
car normally
you
has.
typically fuel each day before you start?
In the morning when it's cooler, because you get more for your money.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions on notification? All right, is anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor or against this request? Yes, ma'am.
I live at 314 Cherry Street,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
there's actually a neighbor that's directly adjacent to my property at 320 that's running a business out of his home. And my concern is that everything will be behind a fence.
It's already equipped with a 6.5-foot privacy fence. It's put
So
together.
I think it just opens it up for more business in a residential neighborhood.
And I won't be like that guy because I won't be selling stuff in my front yard and have big piles of beer cans and dog kennels and whatnot out there.
Does this individual that's doing this, do they have a variance to conduct their
No,
business?
they do not.
And they
Okay,
don't
you
have a
will-
license either.
You may contact the city and they
I
will,
have, and they've done nothing.
okay,
They've been cited one time.
all right.
They have been cited. We have inspected the property. We found no visible evidence that a business has been conducted. We contacted them to explain to them that we require them to come before the city for approval, but we have not been successful in that endeavor.
Mr. Mayor, ask Jill to identify herself.
Yes, would you tell us, could you give us your name?
Jill Battis,
Jill Babas,
yes,
okay, at 314,
14.
okay.
We just have to put that in the minutes, and so that's it.
Okay, we can't,
I know you can't address that, but the concern is that if this is opened up, we can open it up for other businesses in the neighborhood, in a residential neighborhood.
yes, ma'am, as long as it meets the city ordinance, yes, it could. The thing is what we do in normal, as you heard before, we can put any conditions on the variance that we desire or that's applicable, and the majority of the times in this particular circumstance, if any issue is brought up by the neighbors, we will basically give you the opportunity to come back to this board and complain if he is not
Being a good neighbor.
in compliance with this variance. And if he is in compliance, his license will be revoked, plus his variance to operate the business there will be revoked. So you have protection because he is following the law. Now, your other neighbor, the only thing we can do is the city's doing it. We would like to, possibly, no, I don't think I would. I'd rather the police officers do that, but anyway, we can have letters written to them or whatever we need to do to find compliance. But the enforcer is the city. We are the ones who look at it and put the stipulation on, okay? All right, thank you. And please, in your, anyone who makes a motion, make sure that we include that section about the meeting the requirements of the neighbors, okay? It becomes a nuisance, because that's part of that's part of the ordinance, that this cannot be a nuisance to the neighborhood. There cannot be additional traffic, there will not be sign out front, there will be not be people coming to his place of business, his home to conduct business. all of that must be incidental to the property. And what you're telling me about your other neighbor is, that's not incidental, they're coming there, okay? All right, any other questions? Any other one? Someone else would like to speak? Thank you. Fine.
Number 3.
Okay. All notification has been properly made. The audience has given input. You have asked your questions. We will now receive a motion concerning this request.
Put stuff up
Oh,
there.
staff notes, yes. I will. I have those open and just, then took, all right. Section 8.512 of the zoning ordinance allows Board of Zoning adjustments to hear special exception for requests for home occupations. The ordinance states that the BZA must make findings that the request shall not be contrary to public interest and will ensure that the spirit of the zoning ordinance shall be observed, that granting the special exception will also will not establish a prohibited use and will not cause a substantial adverse effect on adjacent property. Furthermore, the board can place conditions on use to ensure the intent of the zoning ordinance. Such conditions can be imposed relating to provisions for purposes suitable and compatible, and for suitability, compatibility, and conformity. That's what we just discussed, okay? And so then the staff concludes that the establishment of a home occupation is considered consistent with the zoning ordinance and recommends approval for with the following conditions. The special exception is valid only for the applicant, for the operation and location as referenced in the application. Applicant is required to meet all conditions as stated in section 6.23, which I talked about: traffic, noise, nuisance, obnoxious odors, okay, those things right there, in which we also, if you come to this board and says is not doing that, it'll be done away with, okay? Should any complaints arise from operation of the business, the board has the authority to revoke this approval if cause is found. Any additional conditions imposed by the board as stated in section 8.5.12. All right, the chair will now entertain a motion concerning this, including the staff's recommendation and any.
I make a motion that we approve his applications with the stipulations that he must comply with 6.23. And if the adjacent properties or the neighborhood have a concern about the running of this business, that they have the opportunity to return to this board and make that complaint.
Second.
Okay. You had 2 seconds, pick you. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Bluntline?
Yes.
Brother Hunter?
Yeah.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
Mr. Barfield?
Yes. The request has been granted. Again, as I stated before, there's 15 days that anyone can appeal this to circuit court. However, you can proceed with the city to get your license and move on.
Can I get a copy of that 3.2 thing?
Yes, you should be able to get, no problem. Okay.
Thank you.
6.23.
6.23.
6.23, once upon a
And
time.
8.51.
Yeah, and I almost, once upon a time I had it memorized, but I
Sheriff, you have those? Can I come get them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're also available online as well, so too.
I told you just give them.
That's fine, that's fine, either way.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Good
Ed.
luck.
All right. Okay, let's go back to the beginning here. Next, new business, okay. Duran and Penny Tucker, did I get that name right? 1640 Country Club Road, appeal of zoning administrator's determination of front yard requirements for parking of a recreational vehicle. All right,
Chairman Bearfield,
yes.
I need to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay.
This is in my neighborhood, so I need to step down.
You may step down and participate in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where is our supernumerary?
Here, it's gonna require 4 votes.
All right, since, please note that since one of our members has recused herself, there's only 4 members of the board seated to hear this request. It will require 4 affirmative votes to pass. Any action of this board requires 4 votes, no matter how many people are present. Okay, we have 5 members, it always takes 4. So there's only 4. An abstention or a vote no would, so I just need to make sure you inform you of that. All right, would you please now address the board and explain your request?
Yes, we'd like to thank the board for hearing us today. We researched the city ordinance before we made the improvements to comply with ordinance 6.242, storage of commercial and recreational vehicles and trailers. And in that, it's states that the travel trailer, motorhome, boats, and hauling trailers, other than commercial trailers, shall be permitted if parked or stored behind the front yard building line. Okay? The beginning of February, we pulled in our motorhome and parked it in our exterior side lot. And within 20 minutes, a neighbor was out taking pictures and stating, you can't park there because it's a corner lot and you have 2 front yards. Then we received a letter from Sherry Proctor 3 days later using the language that included side front yard, corner lot having 2 front yards. And the city ordinance states behind the front boundary property line, the front. And I have an illustration to help further explain this one, okay? A definition of a yard. You can only have one front, one address. You can't have 2 front yards. It's impossible. You have a front yard, an exterior side yard when you're on a corner. You have an interior side yard, and you have a backyard. We are the bottom right-hand corner of that illustration. Our house faces Country Club Road. Our address is 1640 Country Club Road. And in the ordinance it states, shall be permitted if parked or stored behind the front yard building line. When did we add corner lot to that? And having 2 front yards?
In your ordinance, it doesn't state that corner lot. It was added after the complaint, the neighbor in the middle of the road yelling, this is a corner lot.
A corner lot has 2 front yard setbacks.
Not by your own ordinance.
Setbacks.
It says the front yard must be 45 feet minimum under 5.216 required lot. The front must be 45 feet minimum from the road. The side must be 20, so you're making a difference in the
But on the corner,
feetage.
what does it say on the
And
corner?
our side could not be a front because it's not 45 feet from the road. So it has to be a side. In Franklin's dictionary, it says a front entrance is the main entrance into
And
a
even in
house.
Sherry Proctor's letter,
we
the
don't-
second letter I received, you say the front of a building is a principal entrance. Front.
And
Again.
even for 911, 911 can only list our primary address, and that's 1640 Country Club Road. You can't have 2 addresses on one house. And this is what they're doing by making it a front. You have to have a main entrance, and there's no entrance at all on that side.
I have pictures if you want
If
to
you'd
see
like
our
to see it.
property.
Listen, may I read this? This is the zoning ordinance 5.216. Minimum required corner lot yard widths for all streets.
Is 100 feet.
35 feet is the minimum.
That's the
Oh,
setback,
yeah, okay, that's,
That's the minimum.
meaning
Minimum required depth of front yard is 45 feet. Okay, now, the other thing is, how long is your motor home?
38 feet.
38 feet.
Yes, sir.
It also says it cannot be parked outside the building line.
It was not. I've got pictures to show.
Well, I went by today, and it was parked.
Front.
That's
building
different.
line. It's in the
that's different.
ordinance.
It was outside. It was past your front building line.
The garage is the
The
building
garage
line.
is a building line. That garage sticks out another 10 feet.
Here's some, I have a
We
picture
have
from
some-
that side.
We had some bigger
That's
pictures
from
made.
the garage
Friday
looking the other way.
didn't deliver, and, but we can supply those to you at a later time if you'd like to see them. We've got over 50 pictures here.
that's from the garage, looking back, across the front of the yard. The first picture you've got there. I've got,
Mhm.
this is, from the city's original website. You can see where that corner lot there, and you can see where the garage sticks out beyond that.
I've been by, I know the area real well.
Okay.
That's- I don't live too far
Okay,
from
what
there.
is your, side, what is the setback on your east side of your home?
From the street,
From the easement,
Yeah, from the easement.
I walked it off, it's about 45 feet.
We even had a lot surveyed before so that we would know that we were in compliance with all your regulations. We had to spend another $400 to survey the property, to make sure when we did cut down a tree that we didn't do it on city area.
Chairman Bearfield,
Yes.
the heart of the matter is when we have to look at what's considered a front yard. True, the ordinance does not state a definition for a front yard, but we have historically treated any side that is fronting a street a front yard. The setbacks require it. When you look at the definitions in other volumes, it's considered any building line that's facing that's separating the building from a street line.
Then I have a question. Why are these other people in the city allowed to park on a corner lot, a
We got
motorhome?
100 pictures, okay? We got 50 of them here today.
That may very well be, but our office has no knowledge of them.
Well,
we're not
all you
aware.
gotta do is drive around the city.
And one of them's a city
And one is
worker.
a city vehicle.
And I've got those pictures right here too.
Is the city recreational vehicle?
Yes, it is.
No, it's a,
Yes, it is. It's a city truck.
and plus it's truck too.
Trucks and a camper, and it's a corner lot, and he has it all in his driveway. And I can tell you whose it is too, if you need to know who it is.
Always, may I address you just for a second? If you've always treated it in this manner, with a corner lot, if it's, but why didn't you have the council add that to the ordinance so that when we go and pull up the law, that we can comply with it? Like myself being a retired state trooper, I didn't write into any ordinance to write a ticket to anyone. I complied with the law and enforced it the way it was written.
I understand, and suppose, I mean, it's a valid argument that the ordinance should be rewritten. I was not here when it was written, and for what it may be worth, all of the existing supposed violations that are out there, you know, they may have been here for years. I have been here for 4, and since I have been here, I have tried to enforce the ordinances as I understand them, as they are understood to me.
And the public interprets it the way that it is written.
Okay, let me interject. Okay, my name's Courtney Potoff. I haven't met y'all.
I got a letter from you.
I'm the city attorney. And so, I think I might have been copied on a letter, but I don't know that you would have gotten a letter from me. But let me just, let me go through some of this stuff for you, as well as some of the people that are sitting out here, okay? All right, first of all, the ordinance that you're referring to, it states that travel trailers, motorhomes, boats, and hauling trailers shall be permitted if parked or stored behind the front yard building line. I'll agree with you, the term front yard is not defined, but building line as well as frontage is defined within this ordinance. And also side lot line, rear lot line are defined. Let me go through them with you just so that you can see, okay? In addition, not only is that one section, but it says nothing in this ordinance shall permit the storage or parking of any vehicle or non-permanent structure within the required front yard of any lot within a residential district, okay? All right, so building line is defined on page 132 within Article 11. Building line is also the same as a building setback line, defined the same way. It's defined as a line within and across a lot defining the required minimum yard between any structure and any adjacent street line, okay? Frontage is also defined. I mean, I don't want y'all to feel like that any of this is personal.
Well, the thing about it is that it says on the statement as far as treating everybody accordance, when you got over 100 vehicles or recreational that you haven't even enforced it, just cause somebody screams in the street, you want to try to enforce it. How many people have you enforced this to? Could you give us that now?
I know of one.
Yeah, I
For
mean,
sure, but it's a matter of case by case. And unfortunately, we don't always get equal enforcement. We try, and we go with what is presented to us to address it, but we can't cover everything 100%. This has been brought to our attention, we're gonna deal with this. The other issues have not been brought to our attention, and so therefore we can't address them.
okay, anyway, let's go back to where I was going, okay? Okay, frontage, wait, just, let me, you can speak in just a second, let me give you a second, okay? All right, frontage is defined in the statute as all the property on one side of a street. So if you take it, let's take what here, there's not, we don't use the terminology, the same terminology as is in this map. As far as exterior, side yard, and interior, that's not the terminology. Sometimes in other zoning that you see in other cities, they use that terminology. We use lot line, side, rear, lot line, okay? So frontage is all the property on one side of a street. So if I take it like this, then it's, so if I've got ridge, or if I do it with y'all's, like the plat, let's do it like that. Okay, so all the property on one side of the street, so that's here and here, okay? And you go to the next part of it, between two streets which intersect such street, okay? What is that?
Less than 135 degrees.
No, yeah, right, yeah,
Get into
right.
that.
And so this would be, you know, this,
It'd be
okay,
right
right,
if our house was in an angle.
okay. Or if the street is dead-ended, then all the property abutting on one side between the street which intersects such street and the dead end of the street. So like for instance, if this was like a cul-de-sac, then potentially you could have 3 areas of frontage, all right, so that you kind of can understand that. Then if you, corner lot is clearly defined as a lot with 2 adjacent sides abutting in streets. I think it's clearly a corner lot.
It doesn't say 2 fronts though. It
Right,
just
I
says
agree.
2 sides.
I agree with that. You're right, you're correct, and the definition of corner lot does not state that. Then a lot line is a line dividing one lot from another or from a street or any public place. Then rear lot line is defined. It says any lot line which is parallel to or within 45 degrees of being parallel to a street, except for a lot line that is itself a street, and the owner shall have the option of choosing which of the 2 lot lines that are not street lines is to be considered a rear lot line. So it gives you that option for the rear. You can pick one of those 2 lot lines in the back to be the rear. And then a side lot line, which I think y'all are interpreting exterior, which is not a term that's used, is any lot line which is not a street line or a rear lot line. So in my mind, when you look at it, if you're trying to say it's, because it's got to be one or the other. It's got to be the rear lot line, it's got to be the front lot line, or it's got to be the side. So rear is defined. Side lot line is any lot line which is not a street line or a rear. So, you know, in that instance, it's by the process of elimination, it's it could be, you know, consider that. Now, I understand that, and I want to see the photographs. You know, I want to see the photographs. I'm sure the board does as well.
That's the larger ones, they didn't deliver them when they said they would. And
Right.
these are little quick guys.
Sure. Right. Okay.
And then this is the city workers' vehicle, but I have motorhomes, boats. This is a very recreational town. And if you limit people from parking their vehicle, a boat, in their side yard, it's gonna be very hard for a lot of people to function.
No, it's not prohibited in a side yard, it's prohibited
On a corner
lot.
lot, and I've got plenty of that too.
Yeah, right.
And I've got plenty in the front yard.
You can have a car cover with a trailer parked in it in his front yard.
One of the
Fifth
things,
wheel.
one of the things that, since I've been on this board and since I've been dealing with this board, I have been really having some very, very difficult problems with something over here being something and something over here being something else. And we have to decide which one is right. I have suggested on numerous occasions that we sit down and take these set of guidelines that we have, rewrite them so they will be more plainer to any individual that's going to come in and apply.
This happened in Chicago.
They
They had to rewrite the whole zoning thing because it was not specific enough for everyone.
I happen in Connecticut where I'm from. That's why I was so adamant about it. Because one of the things that we want to do, we want to attract people to come to the city. We want to attract people to stay in the city. And we don't want to alienate anyone by saying you can't do this over here, but someone else is doing it over there. So if we can't get it together, I think we need to probably table this and we get our little act together here and decide how we going to function around these things that when it come to us, and so we can make a honest and true decision. I have a problem trying to deal. If you remember when we dealt with the flags and when we dealt with the sign, the guy out on 431 said, because I built this gorgeous sign out here, I got a right to put it up so high. But we said this sign, but we went on the north end of town and the lady put the sign on top of a building and we made her take it off.
Well, and I'll say, the reality is of course, the board cannot selectively prosecute or be arbitrary and capricious in their decisions to prosecute a violation. I mean, let me just say that.
Thank you.
That is certainly, everyone here recognizes that fact. I mean, but, and again, when matters are brought before the board, that's the only thing that you've got to consider. You see what I mean? It's not the board's responsibility. The board doesn't go out and seek violations. They can only make decisions on what is brought before them.
Right.
And so you have to consider that. And so, and what you consider whenever you look at that is you look to see, have you ruled differently as a board in another matter that's been brought before you. So.
I have a couple of questions to you, Mr. Chairman, or to you, Sheriff. I know what is, I know where it's probably not too far from where I live right now. But my concern is this. If Mr. and Mrs. Proctor should go to spend that kind of money, I saw that, I don't know what, but did they have the permission to do that? To do these, I know the trees been cut down, to build this and all that, before they did that, were they aware before they spent that kind of money?
Did you get a permit?
The city doesn't require a permit for pouring a concrete pad.
It does not.
We were turned in for that
We was
too.
turned in one day 10
Yes, that's what I'm
times.
talking about.
10 times.
So a concrete pad is not a
Laying
structure.
the concrete, and the city came out and told us we didn't have to have a permit.
And
We got caught for cutting down the trees and kept numerous. They got so many complaints, they had to come out on a Sunday. And they said, here's my card. If anybody objects to it, tell them I was out here.
they accused us of cutting down city trees, and I checked the ordinance ahead of time, and everything we cut down was within our lot lines.
All right.
I'm wrestling with this. I have some problem with this. And my problem is this, I have some issues with it. I think that we must be fair to everybody. And I do have some issue with a lot of things happening here. Because I noticed, and I spoke out on this several times, that we have, seem like certain laws fit certain side and other. We must be fair with our dealers. And the next thing is this here, I'm saying to their face, I said, this property look better now than it did since I've been here. That property been there, 4 or 5 people been there. And it's looked better now than it ever looked in terms of the looking when you drive
Wait till I'm
by.
done.
We can't get it done because of, the weather hasn't permitted us to do the.
I hear what you're saying out there. Listen, I live right around from you. I paid a lot of money for my property, and I keep my property up. And I'm sure if a man or a woman, whoever they may be, spend hundreds of thousands dollars for a home, they are not gonna let that home burn down.
Amen.
Amen. That's, I mean, I have a problem with it. I really have a problem with it. I cannot be a phony. I'm just me. I have a problem with, I have to be fair. In my position, I have to be fair. I'm a fair man. And I'm wrestling with this.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question of the Tuckers. From the photographs I've been looking at, that parking pad extends on past that fence and that gate. You could actually park your RV in your backyard.
If we pour more concrete
No, it looked like.
and hook it up to it, yeah, we could.
I thought it looked like.
We'd have to take out a section of the fence and pull it straight back in.
Oh, I thought there
But
was
that's
a gate.
still,
That's
that's still the front yard.
Okay, what,
According to what you, it's still the front yard.
now, you just raised another issue in my mind. Another issue
It's
that's
the
raised.
backyard.
Now, what are we wrestling with? The motor home or whatever you call it, but there are, what are we wrestling with? What are the neighbors complaining is
Current
about?
placement of
The placement of the,
RV.
Okay,
Parking.
since the width of the house, I'm looking at the property. I'm basically what I'm defining and what I'm.
Width is
the front, the width of the front yard would possibly be the lines of the sides of the house running perpendicular to the street. How it would be placed. That would be the front yard, right?
What, going,
It's back to
No,
it's back to the illustration I
Yeah.
handed out.
Okay,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is,
It's back to this.
all right, here, if you wanna, that's like a copy of their full plat. I mean, you got,
I missed that class.
What you're saying is, you're this line or this line?
I'm saying basically right
Yeah.
here, this line and this line,
That is the front.
to here to here.
Yeah.
And this is where it's being parked.
And
Yeah.
it's being parked right
Right in
here.
here.
And what I'm saying is basically what I saw is that it is being parked, this is the building line right here.
No,
And
this
this is, no, the building line does not extend all the way here. The
Okay,
building line goes
we can
in.
pull up,
Okay.
we can pull up to that
And so
easily.
what I'm saying is number one, it was not, it was beyond this particular point. But
We
what I'm saying
basically
this,
put it with the
what I'm
garage.
saying is this, right here. You see from this point right here to this point right here,
Uh-huh.
that is a front, that is the second front.
So,
Based off of what I'm asking is this,
You don't want to park it in the backyard?
is,
right there on,
you see what I marked it?
yeah, but see, the frontage would be anything that fronts the street, any part. I mean, you know, so frontage would be
It would run lot line,
all the
lot
way
line along
here,
that building here.
here.
Yeah, I know, that's for that will be the front, okay?
Yeah, that's for
fine.
frontage.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
okay,
frontage.
that's frontage, okay,
Right.
now,
Right.
frontage for the side would run, you saying it would run all the way back to here?
Lot line to lot line.
From lot line to lot line? Okay. Let's shut down mine. When you're on a corner street, you really have no backyard.
we don't have a yard.
Well, you've got, you know, you've got a rear lot line. I mean, it depends on, you know, in this instance, you've got a home that occupies, you know, a great deal of, it's a small lot. I mean, it's a small lot. And so, so you would have a rear lot line, and then you could have, but that's kind of the issue, is it is such a small lot.
And the other thing, the other issue I was having is the fact that since it is a motor home, it is almost a structure on wheels parked in a location. So therefore, it would meet a requirements of a setback. So if the motor home could meet the 35-foot setback from the side street, what you're doing, what we're trying to do with the ordinance is this: do not obstruct the streets as far as their frontage is concerned. You don't put a house on a corner lot within 10 feet of the property line, because it obstructs the entire view and the view of the street. When you put a motor home on there, my question is, are we actually putting a movable structure on that lot, which would require it to be parked 35 feet from the street?
Well-
That's where, that's the questions I have. Now, the other thing is it would be, based off of your side, would be if they moved it to the back. But still, again, what you're saying is, we want a clear vision of a line on a street frontage. Either way, if you're sitting on a corner lot, you can encroach on that 35 feet. Well, that motorhome is encroaching on that 35 feet because of its width, its length, and the fact that it is taking up that space. And it cannot meet the 35-foot side yard setback. There's not enough space in there. They can't park it close enough to the house to get the side of it 35 feet from the street.
Right, well, and then there's also 6.13, which is obstruction to vision at a street intersection,
And-
which requires it's 75 feet from the intersection, but I don't know, I mean, does it?
It should be
It
that.
meets that?
It meets
Okay.
that. I
Okay.
can-
And it's
That's
even
fine.
in true, because we cut down all that shrub,
Okay,
all the
okay.
trees.
But I'm telling you, anybody living on a corner lot has it's a blessing and it's also a curse.
But that's not in your ordinance.
No,
Yes.
but that's what
I'm
it is.
talking
It's
Well-
not in your ordinance.
That's
But the
what I'm talking
definition of corner lot is in the ordinance.
Yes.
It's
But it
two
doesn't say
sides.
corner lot
It
in
doesn't
that.
say two fronts.
Front.
But it says that you can pick which lot line is the rear, but it doesn't say that you can pick which one is the front.
You can only
And
have one
frontage,
address.
and the frontage, is anything that abuts a street, basically. So, I mean, it says what it says, I mean, it's the reality. But,
So our
We have to
request,
move
the
backyard.
request of
You think
this
they
is
put concrete
basically
down now,
define.
Wait till they see what I get done.
Do we-
here's what what is before the board is an appeal, which, I mean, obviously you've got to talk to, I mean, I know there's a lot of people here that want to speak towards this, what's here, but it's an appeal, and so she's made the determination that it's in violation of the ordinance. So they have appealed it. So the board, under 8.5.15, 4 members are necessary to reverse any order of the zoning administrator. So, they're not here seeking like a variance, which would be different. They're here to reverse her decision.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And so it would take 4 votes to reverse her decision.
I think, if you mind, let's let the audience do their thing right now.
No problem.
We thank you very
We
much.
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
You need this back?
No, just the pictures of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, here. I'll get it. I know what that means.
Now, how many, by the show of hands, how many in the audience are here concerning this particular request? All right. I do not think we'd have time today to hear everyone's request. Do you have someone in your group that you would like to speak for you, and we will open it up for either speaking in favor or against?
I'd like to speak. I was asked to speak for Ron Cassidy, who had to leave for another public meeting, which is going to be different from these folks.
So you're speaking in favor of it or against it?
My name's Harry Perkins. Wanted to bring something to your attention. Is Mr. Cassidy asked me to let you know that the front has already been addressed by the city. You can't pick up your trash from your side yard. They've already determined what their front yard is. The city, they won't pick up the trash, your stuff like that. So the city's already servicing that as this is their front yard. I know there's a question, this is a front yard, this is front yard. there's a city on a corner lot, the city will only pick up and service that lot from the one side.
So you're saying this, you're saying from what your knowledge of the city, that they're picking it up on the side where the motorhome is?
No, I don't know which side it is, but there's only one front yard.
Okay,
And the
thank
city's
you.
already determined.
We're taking your information, all right? Yes, now, please note, we need to decide, I would hopefully you could decide 2 or 3 people that would like to speak concerning this, okay? And then, so I will allow 3 people to speak concerning this. If you need more, we'll see, okay? Although, anyone who would like to speak in favor of this request to overturn the ruling of Ms. Proctor concerning the front yard, her decision that this is a front yard. Anybody speak in favor? All right, no one to speak in favor. Is there anyone who would like to speak against, that would like to have the board to overturn? I'm sorry, to sustain, to sustain, okay, I apologize, to sustain Ms. Proctor's ruling on this request. So you're in favor of sustaining? Okay, yes, ma'am. Your name, please?
Catherine Holland.
Okay, Catherine Hollins, you got that? Okay, you're free to speak.
And in response to this gentleman's statement about the trash, I will show you where their trash is picked up. I'm sorry.
Just
Then
hand
you
it,
come
hand
on
it,
this way.
just hand
On
it to her.
steps. That's awkward.
Once we show the picture, can I make a request that while people are talking, everyone could maybe keep their snide remarks to themselves so that we back here could hear?
Thank you.
That would be courteous.
That would be courteous.
That would be the courteous thing to do. Thank you very much.
This is Ridge Avenue right here. This is where their trash is picked up.
Okay, so their trash is picked up on Ridge Avenue?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. All right, would you like to continue to speak?
Yes, I would. As you can see by these pictures, the before and the after, the entrance to our neighborhood has been greatly altered, and many of us feel that our property values have been affected by this motorhome being parked there. Get down. It's not. When I was told that they would be cutting down trees and I asked why, they said because they wanted to park their motorhome there, and I told them, and this was in August, I know you cannot park it in the front yard. Check with the city and see if you can park it on the side. Here we are. They didn't check far enough. And we feel that if you give them forgiveness, you'll be opening the door and setting a precedent to other violations that will then be asking for forgiveness. And we just feel that they have just put that motor home there, and the entrance into our neighborhood is not as attractive as it once was, and it will affect property values. People that have to look at it all the time, they look out their window and there it is. And that's my feeling.
Thank you.
And that, I think, represents the rest of the group.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes, sir.
before you poured the pad and proceeded to park your motorhome there, did you clear it with the city that that was a proper place to park your motorhome?
I asked that question prior to vote. That wasn't my question.
You said you didn't, you told them,
We pulled up the ordinance and complied with the ordinance. The way it's written.
but you did not get any ruling from the
Input
city?
from the city.
Any input from the city? Nothing in writing?
No, sir.
Nothing in writing. So you went on your own to do this, assuming that it would be considered a side yard?
We pulled up the ordinance and pull up the description of the lot before we proceeded. We wouldn't have done it, we wouldn't have spent many thousands of dollars there, which we spent on community workers to do the job for us. And we're gonna continue spending money for workers here in the city to continue improving this house.
Okay, well, what I need to understand is you were aware of the situation of the question of it being a front yard.
No,
A front set, your neighbors did not?
No,
did not.
did not.
Ma'am, did you say you addressed them as concerning this?
Did not say
No,
that
I
on
didn't.
the
No, he's
line.
right. He is correct. I did not say it was a front yard. I did not know that at that time. I just knew that there were, that because it was a side yard on a street, that there might be restrictions.
So
Okay.
we pulled up the ordinance, we looked at the ordinance before we did any improvements.
Well, no, well, since you didn't have to have a permit to put a pad or anything like that, but you did not get a clarification from the city, right? Is that correct?
That would be correct
Okay,
on that
thank you.
portion of it.
Okay, thank you.
But we did pull up the ordinance to know.
Okay, Ms. Blondheim.
Ann Blondheim, I live on Ridge Avenue. And I think we've got several things I want to point out here. First of all, they apparently looked up ordinances but didn't go far enough to find out about corner lot and that type of thing. They just looked at what they chose to choose to look at, and that's what they went by. Secondly, Mr. Walton said something earlier about this, or maybe Reverend Hunter said something earlier about this being a recreation town. We want to attract new people, and we want to keep our yards beautiful for this reason. This does not beautify anybody's yard.
No, that wasn't Reverend Hunter.
Okay, it was
I did
Mr.
not
Walton.
make this statement.
Well, I said I didn't know which one said it. But anyway, that motorhome does not beautify anybody's yard. In the backyard, behind the fence, I don't mind it, but in the front where everybody has to see it, I hear a lot of comments from people that come to visit me that say, when did that thing get there? So, I think it's a detraction. And then the third thing, yes, we do have some other issues that probably need to be addressed, but that's not what we're talking about here. Today we're talking about this one issue, and if we need to enforce this, the way we're going to enforce it, so that down the road, when these other things are brought to us, these other violations, we have a back history of doing that. So I would like us to look at this in a way that we can enforce other violations down the road fairly.
I want to be clear on this.
I have-
I want to be clear, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm wrestling with this in a lot of areas. But I'm trying to get in my mind the clarification of what is the issue here. Is it the motorhome? That's what I'm trying to, what are we dealing with? You were dealing with 3 or 4 issues. Which issue are we dealing with?
I'm going to put it in my terms that I understood
Okay.
it from the city attorney, and if I make a misinterpretation, but this is what I understood that you said, Mr. The ruling by Ms. Proctor was that the area where that motor home is a front yard. And a vehicle of that side cannot be parked in the front yard. So her ruling was, you got to move the vehicle. You can't park it there. You're in violation of the ordinance concerning the use of a front yard.
Okay,
Is that
Yes, I mean, it's
simple?
front yard building line,
Okay,
is
have a
exactly what the
Okay,
ordinance
so the
says.
issue is here. Do we say, Ms. Proctor, you are correct? We feel that you are correct
I
in
hear you. I
that
got
ruling?
that very
Or
clear.
no, we feel like that definition that you've applied to it
I
is
have
incorrect?
that very clear.
Okay.
I'm still wrestling with it. Because you got Ridgewood Avenue and you got Country Club Road. Which road are you considering? The front or the side?
Both.
You can consider both front.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you
On a
can.
corner
On a
lot,
corner
you
Corner
can.
lot you
Well,
can.
look, I lived on the corner for 48 years. A big lot. Paid $14,000 a year tax. So it either gotta be one. It cannot. You can't consider both as front. A corner lot don't operate that way. You call the person on the corner lot actually, I know he paid much more tax than the people in the center of the law. That person on the corner, my tax was 14.5, when my neighbor was like 12 something. I'm saying, what are we wrestling with? We are wrestling with two issues, either Ridgewood Ward Road or Country Club Road. That's what I'm wrestling with.
Well, I can understand your dilemma. However, I would say on the tax issue, usually a corner lot is a larger lot
Yes.
and easier accessible and gives you more options, therefore it would be valued.
I'm very much aware of that.
More. In fact, I wish that I had some corner lots. But anyway, on the other issue is, because the way the ordinance is written and the definitions that our city attorney has given to us, is that with the definitions, any part of that lot that fronts a street is considered basically is determined as a front. Number one, because the setback from it to the building line is basically the same, and it's shown the same, and it's done that for that purpose because of the line of sight on streets and the way the streets look, so that you don't have the corner lot, the building jutting out 10 feet from the street or 7 feet from the street. It all lines up as if it were a front, so everything on that particular street looks like a front yard. On the other street, it's the same way, or else you would have jagged corners. Plus, you would have the problem of vision when you come to the intersection to make a turn. So, for safety purposes as well as for aesthetic purposes, that's my assumption as to the applicability of 2 front yards on a corner lot. If I am wrong, I'm wrong. But that's what But you're at a disadvantage as an owner because that's what you have.
What I would like to add and maybe clarify, in zoning matters, typically it is the intent, when we're absent of a clear definition, it is the intent of the ordinance that we go with. And the intent of these types of ordinances is to not have any obstruction of view in a yard, the intents of protecting the public safety, these types of things we look at. Zoning administration doesn't look at aesthetics, so that's not what's consideration here. So I wanted to add just a little bit more information on this. This is from, it's the latest illustrated book of development definitions, and it is a source that planners go to and zoning administrators go to help them understand what these definitions are, and they come from years and years of zoning law and practice. And it's the definition of a building line: a line parallel to the street right-of-way, line touching that part of a building closest to the street. Comment: the building line is important because many ordinances prohibit parking or other uses between the street and the building line. That's the intent.
Yeah, I got a clear concept of that, but based on what our attorney read, as it relates to some of the older audience, and based on what we are confronted with today, something's not clear, because it's basic the same back there, but what we are doing here, we are making changes, but we are not affected, but we're in the same city. I got a problem with that. Because what she read, I got very good now. Like what she read, I heard it very clearly.
You're talking about when I said about selective
Yes,
prosecution,
yes,
or
yes.
being arbitrary and capricious.
Yes.
But the reality, Reverend Hunter, the reality is, and they may have demonstrated or shown, there were some pictures that it wasn't clear whether it was a corner lot. There were some pictures it's not clear as to whether or not the intent of that motorhome is to be there permanently. In this instance, you've got a parking pad. The intent of that motorhome is to be there permanently, and there's not any evidence that this board itself has selectively prosecuted or selectively ruled, like to tell somebody that it's okay in one instance and it's not okay. And there's not an instance where somebody's brought a complaint where we can show that it's been treated differently by the city in some regard. Now, whether or not you can drive through town and find something, you know, because it's hard to tell from those photographs, again, whether or not, like I said, is something that was there just that day? Was it something that's there permanently? Is it always there? I don't know. You know, I can't tell from the photographs, is what I'm
Your
saying.
point is well taken. I'm
Right.
very, yeah, with that. But I'm very, your point is well taken.
Sure, but no, I don't want
could
it.
personally be, yeah, I have the same concern that my neighbor has, same concern that she has, but I also have some concern with the Mrs. Property. I mean, I have concern on both sides. I have, and I must tell you, I'm wrestling with this.
Reverend Hunter, let me try to use this illustration. If the Tuckers decide they want to build a shed over their motor home, they could not be granted a variance to build a shed.
I'm very
The reason for that is they could not meet the setback requirements for either a side yard, if you want to call it a side yard, or if you want to call it a front yard, because it would have to be 35 feet from the street. So please note, based off of that, this is where my concern has been right now in the question I asked before. Because this is a motor home of the size, 38 feet long, almost as long as the house is at that point wide.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? Plus, it is standing up at least 12 feet high and probably 10 feet wide. So to say that structure is sitting there, parked there, it's a motor home, it's as a structure.
That's the issue.
Now, we asked the Tuckers, did they clear it with the city to make sure that they were safe for front yard setbacks? As they were being discussed, they said no. This board cannot give relief for a self-imposed hardship.
I'm not, Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying that.
So what I'm saying is,
I'm just
if
listening
you
to
were
what I
looking,
hear, I'm listening to what I hear, I'm listening to what they have on paper. So it's not me trying to make no changes. That's me, I know what I hear. And what I hear is it's not cohesive, it's not validated across the board. That's what I'm hearing.
well, I think that if we could draw up an ordinance, a set of ordinances for the city that was going to be absolutely perfect, there would be no need for a Board of Zoning Adjustment.
True.
There would be, if we could draw up laws, that there would be, there would be no need for courts or attorneys. If we had individuals in neighborhoods who lived as if I want to prefer you because I know what it could be like if it were me on the other end. We wouldn't have near as many problems as we have in our city and in our world. So what we must decide today, be us fallible individuals we are, is did Ms. Proctor make the right decision?
That Mr. Barfield, that has been my concern I've been wrestling with. And that's why my question, that phrase. Did Mr. Miller Proctor get permission to do this? Based on what I heard, you stated there was nothing in the zoning pertaining to that first require that. And that's what I'm wrestling with. I know what I heard.
Right.
And that's what I'm wrestling with because it's not clear what you stated.
So are you?
And I would have a problem. I'm not saying the motorhome. I felt the same way, but I'm just trying to say what we are dealing with. I understand that. I understand it. And if I were there, I probably want it either. But based on what you're saying, the criteria you had set forth before, we are deviating from that. And I'm trying to figure out where we are.
I'm not understanding the deviation.
You were saying there was nothing to require them to.
Correct, because you can put in a driveway, because there's nothing in the ordinance, there's no building permit
Okay,
required
fine.
for
We got
a
that.
driveway.
They put the driveway in.
We
But
have
what
no
are we
issue with
wrestling
the driveway in the
driveway or
zoning
the
ordinance
motorhome?
because
That's what I'm trying to
a,
figure out. What we-
Parking of the
But a-
motorhome.
The motorhome, that's what
it's
I'm,
specific to, it's very black and white. It is
that's what
a-
I'm being want to clear. What are we dealing with? Are you dealing with the parking,
Yes.
the driveway, or just the motorhome?
So they can put
Parking
passenger
of the
vehicles.
motorhome.
They can put
I asked
passenger
that
vehicles
question a
over
few
there.
times, but I will
Yes.
never answer that.
Right.
That's what I'm wrestling with.
Right. They can put passenger vehicles on that. So the concrete pad itself is not is not the violation, so to speak.
I've been
So
trying
because
to
they
get
can put, right,
that
because
for-
they can put
That's what I've been trying to get. It was a business.
They can put
I've been throwing
passenger
that out there, but
vehicles
nobody came back. with
right
it.
there. Yes, sir.
We apologize
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
Okay, now, I will say, for some of the pictures that I've seen, we have had requests to come out from a house with a shed on the driveway and to be able to park, for a covering. Now, again, the issue is, can that shed meet the setback requirements? If it could meet the setback requirements coming out, we would have no reason to not say, okay, yes, you can build out from your garage, which you've walled up to make another room, you now want a place to store your car. If it meets the setbacks for the front yard side, for the front setback, yes, we could grant it. Or we could grant a variance if it didn't vary that much. We could grant a variance for the building of that. We have granted a variance in Hunter's Inlet for someone who wanted to build a garage off of their driveway because of the drop-off and the lot conditions there, but they wanted a place to store their vehicles. But this issue here now deals as I see it right now is, if the Tuckers had gone to the city and asked Ms. Proctor, can I park my mobile home here? She would have said, no, it's a side yard. It's not a side yard, it's a front yard. The issue would have been null and void. They did not. They did find out that they didn't have to have a permit to build a parking pad, to build a pad, or to put a driveway in there. They're putting a pad in, so you can put a pad there. No problem. Cut down the trees, no problem. Why? It was on their property. They could cut down the trees. So in that issue, now if it was on commercial property, they would have had a problem. Okay, but they didn't have one on private property. So now the issue is, did they, since the city now has ruled and given their ruling based off of the definitions that they have and the zoning ordinance, they said, we want relief, but we want relief because we didn't ask this before we spent all this money and before we parked our motor home there. So now it's up to us. Do we grant them relief and rescind Ms. Proctor's interpretation of the ordinance, or do we affirm her interpretation? I believe that is, am I making that statement as clear as possible?
Right.
here?
Yeah, that's the question.
That is the question.
Okay.
So now, the chair of the Board of Zoning Adjustments will entertain one of two motions.
Before you do, please, Mayor, you just clarify, and I want you to make me clear on this, and that was my question.
Okay.
But y'all kept evading my question. I will not be evaded. I want to ask, what are we voting on? Are we voting against the motorhome being parked there, or the?
We're voting in agreement or against
You're right.
her
I'm saying-
decision. That's it.
No, but what does her decision say?
Her decision
Motorhome
says
shouldn't
that
be parked.
That
cannot
the
be parked.
motorhome should
You
not
got
be
it.
parked there.
Look, what I'm saying.
Based on her
I'm not trying to be
interpretation of the code.
controversial, but you got to be frank with me.
Based on her
I'm simple.
interpretation
Yeah.
of the code.
Okay, that's not I can speak for myself. Look, I'm just saying, I had asked y'all 4 or 5 times, what are we voting on? Are we voting on the slab of the cement? Or are we voting on the motorhome? You just stated, you kept evading. That's all I'm asking from the very get-go.
Okay.
Now, please note this. This is a situation that I'm going to rely on our city attorney very much. The motion needs to be made, I believe, to affirm the decision of the city attorney. That
No,
would be-
city administrator.
City administrator.
Well, really the only power that y'all can, on an appeal, is y'all can reverse it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so by voting, if you vote yes that you want to reverse it, then you would reverse her order. But if you vote no, then that is in itself an affirmance.
So we're just a straight up yes or no vote, or we do make a motion?
No, you have to vote, somebody make a motion.
Okay.
And then 4 members are necessary under 8.515. 4 members are necessary to reverse any order, requirement, or decision or determination of any administrative official.
So we will entertain a motion to reverse, and then we will either vote yea or nay.
Exactly.
Okay, and it will take 4 yays to reverse it.
Can I ask the city attorney one quick question?
Yes.
I've been searching and I cannot put my fingers on it, but I do believe that there is a directive in the city ordinance that this board cannot relieve a hardship on an application. Is that correct?
Yeah, when somebody comes before you asking for a variance, whenever, in the nature of a variance, whenever they have imposed a hardship on themselves, that is under
That doesn't
the law.
apply here?
No, it does apply. It does apply in the situation when you think of the whole of the circumstances. But when you're talking about zoning law, and you see it in the cases that apply, whether or not you certainly can't be arbitrary and capricious, you can't selectively prosecute, and you cannot relieve somebody from a hardship that's self-imposed, if that's the reason. So like, for instance, if they were to come before the board and say, we would like a variance, we've built this thing and we've spent a lot of money on it and we need a variance now, that's a self-imposed hardship, okay?
And that's the way I see this.
You gotta say, this is tough, I gotta change
Here we go.
it.
Yeah, it
Here we
is
go.
tough.
It's tough.
It's a
Chair will
tough
entertain.
decision, sure.
And we're gonna do it this way,
It's
so you can
tough.
vote yea or nay. Help me out.
I make a motion that this board
Affirm.
affirms our administrator's decision.
Now, if there's one no vote, that fails.
I know.
No,
No,
it
wait.
takes,
It
No,
takes-
it
Then
takes
we gotta turn
4,
that-
no, it takes 4 to reverse her. You see what I'm saying? You have to have 4 people vote to reverse her. You-
Okay, so I
she
need
doesn't-
to say,
you-
so I say,
Y'all don't have to
the
affirm
motion
her.
should, okay. The
Yeah,
motion-
so somebody would need, if anybody wants to reverse her, then somebody would need to make that motion and then.
To reverse her decision.
To reverse her decision,
So the motion should be, this board votes to reverse her decision.
because it's an appeal, she's made the decision, and you can either,
Legal
well, you can
motion.
affirm or reverse, either way,
Legal
but
motion.
4 people have to vote to reverse
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Is there anyone on this board
Mr.
that would
Chairman.
move that we reverse the decision of the building inspector? And then there will have to be a second. If there's not a second, this will be an affirmative by the lack of action.
Yeah, the appeal's denied.
The appeal is denied. Is there anyone on the board who would make a motion to reverse the decision of Ms. Proctor?
Not me.
The chair hearing none, the chair declares that Ms. Proctor's decision has been upheld unanimously. Is that sufficient? Okay. Now, Ms. Tucker, you have 14 days so that you can appeal this decision to circuit court. That is your choice. Okay? However, if called to testify, should I make a statement of why, is there any
Yeah, we
way
need
to
to make a
state of
statement.
what some of our decisions were based upon? But it doesn't need to be.
Yes, I mean, it'd be in the minutes.
Okay,
It'll be,
and
we'll talk about it in
one
the
of the
minutes.
biggest,
Okay,
one of the
that's
biggest
fine.
things that considered, in my consideration of this, is that all of this would have been no cost to you or to any of the neighbors, whether it be high blood pressure or whatever. If it had gone to the city and you had asked the city, is this acceptable to the city? And that's where we come from.
So, you say we can park cars over there?
You can park a car
How many
on it.
cars as we want?
No. Don't we have a limit to the number of cars we're allowed to park in our yard or in our driveway? I'm serious, I'm not
I
being
believe
funny.
there is. There is. There is an ordinance.
There may be an ordinance, right now.
believe there is.
I just know where I live, that it's required that I have at least enough to park my cars and one more. That is a requirement. So if I can either park it in the garage and one outside the garage, or
There
I
has
have,
to be, if I had 5 children driving, we had more than 5 vehicles, we couldn't park them, so there's gotta be one in there somewhere.
I believe there
And it was
is.
enforced on last street, so
I
just
believe
so
there
we know
is. I believe
where
there
this
is.
is gonna lead us.
Here's what I'd suggest that you do. I mean, if y'all's intent is to park multiple vehicles, get a whole bunch of cars and park them there, check with Ms. Proctor to make sure that that's not in violation of any ordinance before you do that, okay?
carport, is that considered a building? A carport?
It's an accessory structure. It requires a building permit.
an accessory structure requires a building permit. Yes. And then it will have to meet setbacks.
And storage buildings also?
Yes. And there are setbacks that if they're not attached to the house, there's one type of setback. If they're attached to the house, there's a different setback. Okay, is that all business?
No.
What we got? Oh, we're right. Okay. Let me look.
Old business.
Old business. We got any old business?
Right here.
Okay, old business.
Okay.
Thank you. Your camera has been working.
We granted variances for these houses in the Dudley Quarters area. And part of the stipulation for the manufactured homes is a foundation and a front and rear porch, correct?
Yes.
Both of these houses, and this one is the one that you worked very hard on placing it. I don't believe that it's placed where you agreed with her. I think it's too close to the property, to the street, based on what, I do believe that this one is now across the property line. So I think and then this house here, both of these houses are occupied. Alabama Power has provided power to these structures, and they're incomplete. And I don't know who's responsible to review this and to give these certificates of occupancies. And I would ask that Alabama Power be required to see that prior to making the connection of the power.
What?
This is a disservice to the people that are having the opportunity to have an improved home.
We will check into it. We don't have certificates of occupancy for either structure, and we are trying to work with Alabama Power Line as far as a procedure, a protocol for that. So we will investigate it, but we will ensure that they will also come into compliance with those requirements.
Well, I did, I followed up on that also. I called Bill to ask Bill some questions pertaining to the two houses. And he told me that they had changed some things in terms of the structures and what's supposed to be done. Because I was questioning the Alabama Power is now putting the power on a pole beside the house instead of the power to the house on top of the house. And he said they changed that a year and a half ago. I didn't know that. Because some people called me and said, hey, I didn't know you could set a pole beside the house and have all your electric stuff on the pole instead of putting it on the house. I said, before I say anything, I'll get back in touch with you. So I called Bill and asked Bill, and he said that change been made a year or so ago.
This is a change by Alabama Power?
No, a change for within our system, because I thought my house, I have a modular home also. They told me I had to put my mast on top of the house.
Okay.
Okay, I did that, but I've been there like about 14 years. Okay, he said that that's been changed. Now you can put the mast on the side of the house on a pole, and Alabama Power will hook up to it. I didn't know that, and I questioned that. Both of the houses got poles, and the masts are on the poles instead of on the house.
That's right, you're right. I was looking at that.
In my opinion, in the spirit of the changes to the ordinance to allow manufactured homes by putting the foundation under them, by putting porches on them, is the idea is to get them to
Conform.
appear and
And beautify.
conform
Yeah.
to look like a true
House.
home.
In the neighborhood.
And to do this post or
Yeah, yeah.
color,
Thank you.
whatever,
Really don't look
to
good.
me,
Yeah.
is
Bring it down the neighborhood.
is negative. It's a whole negative thing. And I think
Yeah.
that somehow or another, whoever, I don't know who, needs to communicate with Alabama Power that this is not being a good neighbor. But who from the city and who from Alabama Power do we get together to resolve this situation?
Yeah. Because the poles are sitting a good 2 feet, 3 feet from the house.
Some of them are, yeah.
Yeah, they set in the way, and the city just hooked up the water to the last one that was put over there just the other day.
Right next to
And-
Galen Gas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they, I was under the impression that this would be on the same principle as a regular house. When you finish, you get the occupancy. When what has been done. From what I gather, what I've been told, they can move in and they got a certain amount of time to get it bricked up and but that ain't what we.
That's not the case.
That's what I said, but I wanted to make sure I was right.
No.
That's what I said, shouldn't that go through you? And then shouldn't our attorney, it shouldn't,
Right.
that should go through you, shouldn't our attorney be to look at that, have all the clarification on that too?
Well, I-
Shouldn't you know all about that before they do that too?
Well, I brought it to Bill's
what I'm saying.
attention that this was all going on, and I see them moved in.
Well, now, when the city attacks the water, that's within the city.
Big problem.
The water, I mean, you know, the water board and the city are two, you know, separate entities. I mean, I understand. You know, and the water board wouldn't necessarily know, you know, what requirements, they don't have to check with the building department, necessarily in order to do that. I mean, they're two separate entities. But let me say this, I mean, what I would like, and this is of course, you know, however the board wants to handle it, but if y'all want to table this issue, let her investigate it and report back to the board. Let her know what your concerns are and then report back to the board at next month's meeting is what I would suggest. I mean, the concerns that you brought back, and then I'll look into it as well.
Well, my concern is that I didn't think they could move in before the.
They're not supposed to.
I didn't think so.
I think
before it
it
was
was basically
completed.
that we should notify the occupants to show cause why their variance should not be rescinded and they need to move.
That's a good idea.
They need to.
I know
they
it's
need to
another thing to
appear
put
in
on your
this-
plate, but to
But
send
they-
them a letter that they are not in compliance and they do not legally have the right to be in those.
That would be the next step.
That's
Yeah.
what, is
I think
that-
that's
is
what
that-
we
is
need
that
to
the
do.
wishes of the board?
That's my wish.
You got
I would like to know,
You got
you
to
know, I
settle
hate to,
down.
I hate to
Yeah.
punish them for something
Yeah.
that somebody allowed them
Them
to
to
do,
do.
and they
Yeah.
thought they was in compliance, but
Yeah.
see, I don't know how can you
I
get
think
that?
they will get with the people who, they will probably
Well,
let them know very,
I don't know how accurate his knowledge was, but when I stopped and I took pictures of that double wide, the gentleman came out and I took it upon myself and I asked him, I said, when are you getting your foundation finished? Oh, we gotta call the trailer company.
You see, that's what I'm saying, they ain't even started.
There's
The single wide would have started the foundation, but the double wide haven't started.
But again,
Yeah.
I'm concerned because based on the conversation she had with our attorney, that trailer is sitting across the property line.
That's what I heard. And based on what I first started, the specifically said it had to be bricked up around and all before they move in, right?
That's
Yeah.
Am I right? But that's what we had said before, right?
Yes.
It's skirted, right?
It has to have
It's
the
a permanent
foundation.
masonry.
Yeah, permanent basis.
Masonry foundation.
Around the
so
porch, yeah.
it is the wishes of
Let
the
me ask
board.
something.
They come and show cause as to why they should not be, there should not be, rescinded.
To at least to address your concerns.
Oh, she does it, yeah.
Thank you.
And will
No,
they
by no
be
means. I wouldn't want that big old truck. I was, let me ask you something.
briefed or however,
I believe we have a time frame on it,
Well,
don't we?
they'll have 30, they'll have 30 days.
30
from the
days,
day.
yeah.
What size shed you can put on your property without having a permit?
How did the
Up
company?
to what size, from what side to what
I
side?
don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
Huh? What size shed, you know? Cause I'm getting ready to get a shed, what
Generally,
size?
less than 120 square feet doesn't require a building permit.
You say what?
Less than.
Less than 120
Less
square
than 120 feet, so that'd be
10 by 12.
10 by 12, 10 by 12 is a pretty big shed, right? Yeah, 10 by 12.
It doesn't say how high, it doesn't say cubic feet.
No, if 10 by 12, I'm gonna be so high and so wide.
And you can have it 16 feet high.
Oh, no, I,
Question, like for my neighborhood, Oaks Landing, if someone wants to build a storage building, is, does it have to be vinyl siding, brick,
Where is it?
Oaks Landing.
I believe you have
They
a,
have a,
you have a house homeowners association, right?
The juice.
Well, you know,
You've got restricted covenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could,
we
it may or
never
may not.
met.
Yeah, but you may have restricted covenants in your, that came with your
It
deed
should
to your
be-
house.
It's usually they state something, it must meet the exterior,
how can I find out? How can I find
No,
out? I gotta
restricted
get a
covenants
shed.
rectify that.
My wife told me I get a shed. How can I find out? Oh, see, how can I find out?
did I grant
I know
you?
you
All right, we
said 10 by
adjourn.
12.
Yeah.
Does
That don't
everybody
have to have no
get,
permit.
does everybody believe it?
But anything over 10 by 12,